From Variety, celebrating more than 118 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. Several guests on John Mulaney's recent Netflix talk show, Everybody's in L.A., were a bit baffled, but Mulaney isn't quite sure why.
I didn't find it that weird. It became an interesting, locally focused talk show for the entire globe. I did pick topics that I thought would be interesting to a lot of people, and I thought our experts were pretty fun. So when people go, I have no idea what's going on, part of it was by design, and I didn't know what was going on a lot. I tried to keep myself in the dark about a lot of details.
I'm Michael Schneider, and on this episode of the award-winning Variety Award Circuit Podcast, John Mulaney discusses his experience and perspectives on Los Angeles identity, his creative processes, and whether he'll host the Oscars. Also on this episode, the Roundtable discusses the comedy acting categories and who's on tap to get a nomination. It's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. Counting it down. It is Variety's TV Awards Circuit Podcast. I'm your TV editor, Michael Schneider, joined by Emily Longaretta, just back from Austin, Texas.
Yes, I am.
From the ATX. It is TV festival season. Mm-hmm. Clayton Davis sitting across from me. Yeah, we got the
back from the Valley.
We got the Variety TV FYC Fest this week. I'm off to Banff this weekend. It is TV festival time. So,
yes, it is.
Woohoo! TV.
All TV all the time.
Exciting.
Do you want to hear a hot take? I've never been to a TV festival before.
Yeah?
You're missing out.
Well, it's always poorly timed festivals.
Yes.
There's that too.
It's not even poorly. I mean, there's just so much going on. Like June is the craziest time in the world. I'm very thrilled that ATX TV Festival, which is one of my favorites, was a little earlier than usual this year because I don't think I would have been able to go.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because it was like it started at the end of May, which usually happens later. But I guess the calendar.
It's always takes place on the first weekend of June, and technically that was the first weekend of June.
True.
It just started the end of May, so it was a relief for me, but a good time.
Yeah. Now and then there's Upfronts, which is it's not an official festival, but it always feels like it is because that week in New York, you're just running around from event to event. And
or even TCA. I've never been to that either.
Oh, well.
TCA.
I know.
You missed the best years.
I know, the best
TCA
years.
ain't ever coming back.
Truly.
I feel like it's a lie.
TCAs are not what they used to be.
No, but there'll still be a TCA. It's just going to be very, very short. And by the way, the last day of TCA, did you notice this? It's on nominations day.
Yes, it is. So this is a conversation I actually had because originally, I won't say which, but there was another studio who had their set visits that day in the morning. And I was like, you realize that no reporters can go to that, right? Like we are all a little bit busy.
Busiest mornings of the year, as a matter of fact.
It's like we barely can commute anywhere to be away from our computers for that long, let alone go to a set visit.
Yeah. So that's we'll see how that goes. Yes. And then Comic-Con happens after that.
And I've heard there's a lot of TV going this year.
TV's back, baby. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Did it ever go away?
What's that medium called? TV.
So this week, why don't we? So the last episode, we talked about the drama acting categories. This time, why don't we go down the comedy acting categories?
Let's go down to drama part 2.
Exactly.
Comedy.
Well, and Clayton, what kind of reaction did you get from your story? So Clayton, the other day you wrote a story about what everyone's been talking about, which is The Bear and the debate over whether or not it's comedy or drama, which we've been debating for 3 seasons now, but nonetheless, it seems like that conversation has really picked up this year.
I'd like to publicly thank my editor on that story, Emily Longaretta.
You're welcome.
For getting it one of the most talked about things yesterday. You know what's interesting? It seemed up until now that it was kind of one of those shrugs of people it's like not a comedy, but like whatever. But the passionate feeling, and I think this is where it becomes interesting. People are like, it's funny. There's definite moments of laughter, and I think the point that we're trying to make overall is you can have laughs in a show or a film. You can chuckle a lot, but it doesn't mean that it's like the overall arch overarching theme of it is comedy.
Right. I mean, I've laughed in The Notebook. It wasn't a comedy.
I've cried in Friends. It was never a drama, right?
Exactly.
Right. So I think we can have, there is I think, moral of the story, not everything fits into a box.
Mm-hmm.
The Bear feels like a box that looks like drama, but I think the big takeaway in the story is that other networks are trying to trigger a review from the TV Academy to get it kicked over to drama. And I think that is just highly unlikely to happen because I think that would open Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like,
because there's a lot that are blurred lines. I mean, The Bear is the obvious one, but over the years, I mean, there has been a lot. And now a lot of people, I mean, I will say this weekend at ATX, I moderated the Funny AF panel with the folks from Universal and a lot of showrunners and comedy. And we talked about this specifically. And they all were like, no, The Bear shouldn't be in our category. Like they all were very upfront about it. But they also were like, but also last year, Succession was hilarious. So there is this, there is this realm now where this gray area.
Yeah. Well, Jeannie's been out of the bottle for a while. When you go back to Ally McBeal and you go to Desperate Housewives, shows that also were in the comedy category.
Desperate Housewives was comedy?
yeah, it was.
Wow, I don't think I ever knew that.
Which is a show that started with a murder.
Right.
So, it's once you did that and there's that precedent, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And Bear kind of looks more like a comedy than hour-long like Desperate Housewives did.
And I think that is
It's
where
the half hour.
It's the half hour versus hour. And I think, and again, this is why we exist, I think, in this space to educate the public. People still thought the rule was still in place about 1 hours are dramas and 30 minutes are comedies. That rule's been gone since 2015.
Right.
And I would say there's always like these clump of shows that broke the Emmys, essentially. And it was all around that time, like Orange is the New Black broke the Emmys. Shameless broke the Emmys because they did the back and forth.
Jeremy Allen White, man.
Jeremy Allen White broke the Emmys,
This is all his fault.
But I will say, if it was longer than a half hour, I think they would have maybe had a leg to stand on. I think then people would have like fought harder for it. But at this point, it's like, listen, I think we should encourage 30-minute dramas. We should have more of those. But I do think that they would open up a whole whirlwind of crap.
Yeah. And the thing is, the Bear still looks and feels, and it's structured a lot like a prestige half-hour single camera comedy, like even a Ted Lasso, which had a lot of dramatic elements. It's
especially the third season.
Yeah, you're really sort of like you're picking, like you're slicing really thin at that point when you're sort of nitpicking between what's the difference between a Bear and many of these other shows,
or Barry. Like, what was the difference between Barry and Breaking Bad?
Right.
Runtime.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Especially later on. Again, like when the body count picked up in Barry. I mean, last season was very dramatic. I mean, it's funny.
The last
but
3. it was a really heavy show.
I don't think I laughed though.
Oh,
But I'm like, for The Bear, I don't think in season 2 I laughed in majority of the episodes. I mean, there were like, I cracked a smile here and there. Eben Moss-Bachrach cracks me up.
Yeah.
So there are people
and
and elements.
Matheson,
Yes,
like,
of course.
So there are comedic elements, and they're structured that way. John Mulaney is funny in that show.
Well, and a lot of the auspices, and that's where too, like, from Christopher on down, and then Io is, comes from comedy. So you do have a lot of people on that show who have a comedic background, and that's also sort of clouding our judgment on what's a comedy, what's a drama.
But most of them are dramatic actors. I mean, Jeremy Allen White is a dramatic actor. He's not a comedian. I mean, Oliver Platt is a dramatic actor. Like, there are people in this show who are known for that. So
Maybe Bob Odenkirk broke the system when, he is a comedian who has done some of the best dramatic work in all of television the past couple of years. So we just don't know anymore.
And he was only nominated for comedy, right?
Boo, boo Emmys.
Yeah.
So, but again, we just don't know anymore what's a comedy, what's a drama, because the people who are behind these programs, are you a comedian or are you one of our best dramatic actors? Well, both.
I'm also going to give you a shout out here, Mike, because you wrote it really well in one of your columns about, like, the genre delineation and especially limited series. Some right now where we exist, a lot of things it doesn't, when you say The Bear is a comedy, like, I think you have a leg to stand on, but I think it's what it stand next to that it's when it becomes more pronounced. So Abbott standing next to The Bear looks weird. Kind of like scripted variety. SNL standing next to John Oliver looks weird because those are not two things that are alike. So I think the Emmys would help themselves, I think, to try to narrow this, because I know everyone wants a shot and a lane to exist in. And now, because we're going even broader, I think it now probably needs a more narrow take of like, listen, best drama series, best comedy series, kind of that's it, or best news. Like there is an answer. I don't know what it is yet, but The Bear does live in a kind of weird zone. But I think it's going to live in comedy until it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, it's, again, genie out of the bottle. It's if you force that to go to drama, then you're going to have to force a lot of comedies to go to drama.
I think everyone's going to fight. It would be insane. And the reasoning, I think, that triggered, I said this in the column, the reason I think it triggered was because The Bear, if you read the predictions, is poised to break the 30 Rock record for most nominations for a comedy.
Which is actually insane.
Which is insane, because those two shows are not alike either. But it is going to demolish that record. And I think people are like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, that's going to look weird now in the record books. The most nominated comedy of all time is
that good old
drama.
Hilarious The Bear.
Yeah. But that's what television has become, and it's hard to argue that just TV is different now. And what we used to think of as comedies, these multi-camera sitcoms, again, we've talked about it forever. There just aren't many of them anymore, and they're not seen as prestige the way the single cameras are, and so they so rarely get any sort of attention. It's the same on the drama side with the procedurals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with Law and Orders and stuff like that. Yeah, because they had an air of it, and then it kind of moves away. But I actually have a question for you guys that actually circles The Bear, which is a good lead into talking about what's happening in comedy. Do you think episode submissions still matter? And the reason why I ask that is The Bear has chosen only to submit one writing episode, which was Fishes, not Forks. In addition to, they're only submitting one episode.
That's
for
so
writing.
crazy to me.
And directing, they submitted 2. Fishes and Rami Youssef's episode, not Joanna Kahlo's, which she directed Sunday, which is the 3rd episode of the season. Chris Storer, the rules are, if you're a director, you directed a bunch of episodes, you have to select one. Writing, it's the same thing. You can submit a standalone if like Chris Storer did some episodes by himself that he wrote, and then he co-wrote Fishes with Joanna Kahlo. So he, in theory, could submit 2, but they're just submitting that one.
Well, I'm guessing, I mean, you don't want to cannibalize yourself, right? You're probably kind of guaranteeing that you get a slot if you don't have 4 or 5 that are all competing to get that slot.
Yeah, it's a Ted Lasso thing, because Ted Lasso, especially season 1, remember, Zach Braff, the only episode he ever directed was Biscuits, and they submitted like 6 episodes or something that season. They got 3 nominations, but they lost all of them that first season. So maybe it is a strategy thing, but it's also like, you're The Bear right now. I think you probably could.
Right. You could succession it up and basically dominate, maybe get all 5 slots if you wanted. But do you want to? I mean, in some ways, I'm glad they're not, because then we don't have a succession situation where it's like, it's succession versus succession versus succession. But yeah, if you're the individual artist who then isn't submitted, then you're kind of bummed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a active debate online about what's the best episode of the season. Is it Fishes or is it Forks? And there's
Forks
there's like
so
they're both great, and they're both back to backs. They're great, but it is an interesting thing. And Forks will undoubtedly be Eben Moss. His submission.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be his submission.
Well, 100%. I mean, the whole episode.
It's got to be.
But your question about do submissions matter? I mean, did they ever? Ultimately, it's people are still thinking about the show itself. And as we know, famously last year, The Bear probably got a lot of its Emmys because everyone was thinking they were voting for season 2 when they weren't. But it sort of was just in the zeitgeist. And this season, same. They'll probably be thinking about season 3 as they're voting. So
that's going to suck.
It's so we have to wait and see what season 3 looks like. It's probably going to be fantastic, and it's going to be coming in right at the right time for votes. Well, let's jump to some of the categories. So starting off with actress in a comedy, and again, this goes to what's a comedy, what's a drama, because Kristen Wiig is a contender for a show, Palm Royale, which, it's a comedy, but it's a drama.
There was a wrestle within the show's creators and Apple about whether or not that should go drama. I think they ultimately decided to say comedy, obviously. And I think that right call.
I think it's the right call.
Yeah, Kristen Wiig.
It's Kristen Wiig.
It's Kristen Wiig.
You know, she's a comedic actress.
Exactly.
Carol Burnett. And there's just
Allison Janney.
Yeah, it's full of comedic geniuses.
So yeah, I think there seems to be like a very heavy 6 that are in the race, but I think we're only going to have 5 slots because of the submission rule, and I don't think we're going to get over 80. So I mean, we all can assume that Gene Smart's going to be there because
yeah. American Treasure.
But by the way, Hacks also leans very drama this season, I'd say as well.
But still is hysterical.
It's great. It's great.
Great, yeah.
Io will be there, you know, making the switch from supporting the lead, and then reigning champ Quinta Brunson. So those 3 feel good. And then those last 3 slots are going to be between Kristen Wiig, Maya Rudolph, which Loot has been catching some fire. There are people who are discovering it.
Yeah, I agree.
In a very organic way. And I think Maya might do a little bit of damage this year.
I gotta say, like Loot, I was late to Loot, which I think a lot of people were. Really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I love that there's, again, a very LA centric theme to it. It sort of fills the void that I lost when the mayor or Mr. Mayor didn't go the distance. But from, you know, that same world of that NBC Universal comedy, it's a great show with a great cast and a fantastic ensemble led by Maya. So,
and then that 6th slot, could be Selena Gomez, right? Now, listen, we've been here twice before, and especially for season 2 of Only Murders, it really looked like Selena was going to make it in because it was really her season, and she didn't. So now, I mean, you know, kind of, it's very rare to have people jump in later in seasons, and the most recent example I could think of was Mandy Moore for This Is Us. Yeah, she got in very inconsistent along the way, and I remember the I think season 3, which is when does Jack die? When do we see Jack die? I was like, when did he die? The whole show.
First episode.
I think it's 3.
3, yeah. The Snicker bar, like she didn't get nominated that year,
right?
Which was insane.
That breakdown of I think that was 4 actually, the hospital when you find out. Yeah.
So like that's why it's been, you know, sometimes people who had previous careers in other things do face tougher times.
Yeah. So maybe that's what the case is with Selena.
Yeah, you know.
But beyond that, I mean, there's a lot of great names on shows that especially kind of are bubbling under, like our beloved Girls 5 Eva. I know.
So disappointing. so like it's just like, damn guys, we positioned, we led the horse to water, and then
we did.
People didn't drink it.
Yeah.
Damn world.
So
actually, I should share something really quick though. Back a second about Abbott, because Quinta, first Black woman ever to be nominated in 3 categories for producing, writing, and acting. Probably will do it again, hopefully, because she did miss writing last time. But she submitted Career Day for her writing episode, the premiere, and then directing is the finale, Randall Einhorn. And Abbott's never got in for directing, so hopefully this will be. It's like I think this season of Abbott was its best season yet. The season of Abbott rocked.
So strong.
Yeah. It really stretched. Obviously stretches boundaries with what they did this season.
Yeah.
So let's go to the actor side. The aforementioned Jeremy Allen White, of course, is the front runner. But then we do have the Only Murders guys.
Which only one got in last year. Yeah. So let's see
if they both managed to get back, or if just one of them, because Martin Short made it last time, but I feel like there's a good shot that maybe Steve and Martin get back to it.
Yeah, I think especially with the original song that's submitted that he sings, I think it's probably a fair assumption. Again, it's because it's a little thinner.
I was going to say it's a little thinner. I think that without Ted Lasso, it really opens up that door. Yeah. So, but I do think that means Larry David is almost a shoo-in for a nomination, which even though not always
he's the only one I believe that has any shot of beating Jeremy Allen White. If someone were
I will say that I doubt that will happen.
I doubt it too. But if anyone did do it, it'd be Larry David.
Maybe if Larry had actually campaigned.
Yeah, I mean.
And maybe he will in
but
phase 2.
also the bear didn't campaign either.
This is true.
But I guess people say
the bear doesn't need to campaign.
Some people say it to themselves. They're like, they're filming, that's why, and they also don't need to. But Larry David, by the way, campaigning, you bring that up, I smell a little Harrison Ford part 2. That most telling thing of him missing for Shrinking was campaigning still matters.
I'm still not over that. I had this conversation last night about Harrison Ford missing it.
Campaigning matters, and when you don't do it, it does. You can be a casualty.
Yeah.
So I wonder.
Well, who has been campaigning, included on the cover of our Emmy EE issue, is Mr. Kelsey Grammer.
Yes.
And who I just noticed you misspelled his last name on your chart. I'm going to have to go in and edit that right now.
How's it spelled?
It's ER, not AR.
Can
I tell you that that's a name that I check every single time. Because I always write AR also. And I always fix myself. Yeah. I don't know why I can never remember it.
It's so funny. I had this conversation with Kelsey when I interviewed him about this. I asked him so how, to this day, how annoying is it when people misspell it? And he says at this point, honestly, if people are sending me a note and they misspell my name, I know they're not serious.
That's so funny. I also always misspell Frasier though. So I think that's...
you always got the I?
No, I do FRAI instead of ASI. So I don't know what it is, and it's the show's been on forever, so I don't know why.
I've said many times I've written Fajon by accident because I'm just thinking about Clueless.
It happens.
Yeah.
And then the other person I think in that, there's a good chance we're going to see Theo James get in there for The Gentleman.
It's a Netflix factor.
The Netflix factor.
A little prestige-y.
I think a lot of people watched it. I think a lot of people were talking about it for a short moment.
Again, a little surprising that it's a comedy. I mean, there are obviously funny elements to it, but
I wasn't sure that it was a comedy.
It's very Guy Ritchie comedy, though.
Yeah.
It's it kind of fits in this, but you also probably could have went either way.
Yeah, because it's Guy Ritchie ultra-violent as well. Mm-hmm. So these are the bloodiest comedy contenders we've ever had in the history of the
violence is funny, guys.
Exactly. But then bubbling under, you've got Jarrell Jerome from I'm a Virgo, which I feel was 3 years ago, but is still
I always have to double check if that show is eligible. I always forget that it came out in this eligibility year.
How.
It's pretty rough. But I love Jarrell Jerome a lot. He also podcasts one of the interviews this week. One of those that that post Emmy win bump didn't come like I would want to for a guy who's as talented as he is. But I do like this kind of work for him. Boots Riley. Yeah.
No, absolutely. He definitely got to expand himself a little bit. And then you got the What We Do in the Shadows guys.
Who've never gotten in. And this last season was a little... it wasn't as loved as the other seasons were. And you know who's not a writer this season was Stephanie Robinson, who wrote for Atlanta. She got nominated for What We Do in the Shadows 2 years in a row. She wasn't a writer this year, and I wonder if we're just missing her.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. That could be. All right, let's move on to supporting actress in a comedy. So these are always some of the most crowded categories. And look at the names this year. I mean, starting with Meryl Streep.
Bunch of nobodies.
For Only Murders. And then, of course, you've got Hannah Einbinder from Hacks, who's fantastic.
Her best shot to win an Emmy is now.
Yeah.
If she's going to do it, she has to do it now.
And then you got the Abbott folks. You've got, previous winner Cheryl Lee Ralph. You've got Janelle James. You got Lisa Ann Walter.
Well, let me ask you, do you think Lisa's going to make it this time?
I mean, I hope. I would love to see her. Overdue.
Listen, again, saying that this is the best season of Abbott, I really felt like they abandoned her kind of halfway through the season. Her and Chris's roommate bit was so great. That was episode 4 or 5. And then her whole arc stopped midway through the season. She just didn't have anything to do in that way. But I am hopeful that she'll get her first kind of bid. Hopefully that'll be it.
Well, so the other question is, do we see a big block of Abbott folks and a big block of the Bear folks? And
just have 2 shows represented in Meryl Streep? Probably.
which is a possibility, or do they mix it up? Do they go with a Legends block? I know you have Carol Burnett much further down in your ranker, but she's Carol.
She is Carol Burnett, but there's also Allison Janney in the same thing. I mean, maybe they just do both.
Maybe they do both. Maybe there's a Palm Royale block.
I don't think all three of the Bear girls are going to get in.
So this is the one chink in the armor, I guess, for the Bear, right? Is like supporting actress comedy, because you could tell me that all three made it. You could tell me that just one made it. You could tell me that none made it, and all sound feasible. I guess the question is, Mike has do they go for the show, or are they going for the name? And I think sometimes in different categories, you get different stories there. Right. Like when the White Lotus and Dopesick did it, they did it for the shows. They weren't really doing it for the names. They didn't know who Murray Bartlett was or Theo James was at that time. But now, there's something different. There's acclaimed performances, but maybe not as well known actors.
Yeah, so
I need Liza to make it, though. I need it.
I would love that.
She's my favorite part of the supporting
They're all
cast.
Great. I mean, Abby Elliott and Emily Gordon are also great. I think Liza and Abby probably have a little bit of more of a chance than Molly.
Yeah. Now, Liza, I just still think of Yes, Jeff.
She also has the moment of the season for me, like her hugging Io before she sends her to.
I think there's also a chance that some of the SNL women get in, and I think that that's always a hard thing to bring into. But I feel like Heidi had one of her strongest seasons yet.
She had her. I call it her comeback season, because she started off so strong, and then it was very Cecily strong of her. Actually, I would say she started off
not strong, but Cecily strong.
She started off so I was like, oh my god, she's the next big thing of the show, and then they weren't utilizing her as much, and then Beavis and Butthead just brought everything back. We were like, oh yeah, we forgot.
Yeah,
she's great.
Oh my gosh.
But SNL is going to be an interesting entity this time around, because season 49 wasn't really the best season. It starts off weak, but it ended strong. So I guess what's the most prominent thing in their memories. But the women they haven't really gone for since Edie Bryant days, like the Edie Bryant, Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
They
haven't done this new group yet.
Yeah, and it's again, crowded fields, and looking at the supporting actor field as well, we've got the front runner in Eben Moss-Bachrach, who is just on fire right now with the Bear, and this is season 2. This is his season.
This is what he should be winning for.
Give me him screaming Taylor Swift all day.
So he's there. But then you've got Oliver Platt pretty high up from the Bear as well, Clayton.
I mean, that becomes like you're checking off the Bear.
And he won Guest last year.
And he won. Did he win last year?
I think he won. Am I imagining
that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But I think it is a different story when you go from guest to supporting, because I think Bradley Whitford's the good example of that. He won guest a bunch of times for Handmaid's Tale, and then every time he went supporting, he lost. Sometimes when you make that transition, it is hard. He doesn't have a whole lot to do, but again, the Bear is the Bear. Listen, I'm not even sure about Lionel Boyce and the Maddie Matheson, even though I haven't predicted right now. I keep saying to myself, I think that's a red herring. I feel like we're just going to be like, that's not going to happen.
I'm sorry, Oliver did not win for Guest. He was just nominated.
Oh, okay.
I was maybe just imagining.
You'd willed it.
I was trying to.
He should have been.
Yes.
But again, I think it's just about how much are they going to love the Bear? I think Lionel Boyce is so great. And he has such a great episode with Will Poulter. Good arc of the show.
Yeah, the one directed by Rami.
Yeah.
The finale is great. It breaks your heart.
He has so many. I mean, that's the thing. That's the other thing about the Bear, is that every person they bring in is really good. So every single person they are competing against themselves, because every person deserves a nomination.
Although what's funny is when you think about it, this is the most comedy of categories for the Bear, because these are the people who are the comedic elements,
comedians,
between Eben and Maddie Matheson, especially. But Oliver Platt, he plays the heavy for, it's kind of with a wink and a nod. So this is the comedy category for the Bear. Mm-hmm. So this would make the most sense to stock up with Bear actors. Mm-hmm. But then you've also got Paul W. Downs from Hack. Hacks, who was elevated this season to a series regular.
Yeah, a lot of Hacks guys that can got him. Yeah. Former nominee, non-binary actor Carl Clemens Hopkins. I think those are the only two that are eligible in this race from the show, off the top of my head.
Yeah, the major ones.
Yeah.
I do think there's something to say, though, about Richard Lewis being in the mix for Curb. I mean, it's not such a loss that I think this could be a really... You don't want to say that, like, oh, they deserve it because they're no longer here. That's not, of course, not the case.
It happens a lot.
It is something that it's like... Look, he deserves it regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so funny.
Yeah. And, and now posthumous nod would be really nice, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chance Perdomo is also,
of course, for
Gen V.
Yeah.
So I think, those all present themselves. I have to ask something about Abbott Elementary. I want to give a theory and see if you guys subscribe to it. Tyler James Williams, I think his Golden Globe win for season 1 did so much for us really assuming that he was going to be like a contender for such a long time. And the role he plays on Abbott, this is not saying that he's bad. I think it's hard to be the straight man on a show. Mm-hmm. Like the John Krasinski, The Office, that you look at the camera, you're like, he's made for that.
Yeah.
Krasinski never got nominated either for The Office. That's a hard role to play. And he didn't have a whole lot to do this season, except for when we got to the Mother's Day episode. Then it became a more kind of a little bit of a dramatic hit. And then you start thinking about like, okay, is he like, what are you rewarding? I wonder if he's too not comedy on the show to maybe that's fizzling out.
I mean, I think he's safe for a nomination. But I think
we are going that we can't do that because look at Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah.
Like that character is still much more funny than Jeremy Allen White is.
Yeah.
It's like that you can't be Jeremy Allen White doesn't make one joke in the entire series. So I think that there is.
And Tyler's character, on the other hand, he's constant, like there's a new quirk every couple of episodes.
He still makes you laugh all the time.
Yeah. And again, like I think it's just a hard role to play in a sitcom role. And I just keep going back to the John Krasinski thing. Like he never got nominated for the entire run, but Jenna Fisher did, and Rainn Wilson got nominated I think 2 or 3 times. But then in comparison to Chris Perfetti, who actually had a really great year, and it's been a scene sealer who hasn't gotten in yet. I wonder if now is his moment, or maybe is it a switcheroo type of.
Oh, maybe this is the year that Perfetti gets in. I could see that as a real possibility. I mean, there's other big names that we're not talking about. I mean, Paul Rudd from Only Murders. I mean, that was a pretty standout role.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
And then, from the SNL folks, I mean, Bowen Yang always, like, he kills. He had another great year.
Yep.
But Keenan, of course, is the gold standard over at SNL. If we're talking Curb and we're talking, that's the final chance to nominate folks from Curb besides Richard Lewis. JB Smoove is right in there. And JB, I mean, he brings just the gold to every scene that he's in on that show. He's the only person on that show, I think, who can really crack up Larry and really keeps Larry David on his toes. So we could see that. And then if people really liked Palm Royale, if they're really in the mood, Ricky Martin's another big name.
What a world to live in.
And people really actually really, really love Ricky Martin in Palm Royale. Like that, I think in my mind, that role started as something and became something so much more because of Ricky Martin. Not that the writing was excellent in the show, but I think it kind of, you can see the difference of like, oh, this is on the page, may not have been such a big part. And I feel like once he took it where he did, it became so much more. So I would not be surprised if Ricky Martin slipped in there.
All right. Well, on that note, talking comedy, speaking of comedy, our guest on this episode is the one and only John Mulaney.
Oh, boy.
So we talk all about
he's terrible,
everybody's in
terrible
LA.
Human. Terrible. In every way.
We geeked it out with John Mulaney. We definitely geeked it out. So, and now I think we're going to go see Wang Chung with him. I think that's.
Oh, yeah. That definitely is happening.
I'm sure.
We have it on the record.
I'm sure he'll show up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until then, we'll see you next week, everyone.
Thanks, Dad.
Bye. After the break, we talk to comedian John Mulaney. From Los Angeles, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, and I'm Michael Schneider. After winning his third Emmy last year for writing his Netflix stand-up special Baby J, where he spoke candidly about his stint in rehab for addiction, John Mulaney is back in the Emmy race this year, once again in multiple categories, most notably for Guest Comedy Actor for his performance in the brilliant episode Fishes from FX's second season of The Bear. He's also up for Outstanding Talk Series via the Netflix live event Everybody's in L.A. The 6-episode series, which aired during the Netflix is a Joke Festival in May, sees the former series creator sitting down to have candid and hilarious conversations with a wide range of guests, including Jon Stewart, alongside his witty sidekick Richard Kind, and the very efficient robot delivery cart Samo. Mulaney's 70s-inspired talk show is the latest to shake up that category.
Fun fact, did you know L.A. has a mayor? If you were rolling around town, you'd be like, no mayor, right? And then you'd be like, for no mayor, it's going okay. And that's not a knock at the current mayor, not at all. I think it is crazy in any decade for any person to look at all this and go, I got it. I'll be able to handle that. A little history. The first person to ever move to Los Angeles was a Spanish explorer in 1781 who thought he'd give it a shot here after friends told him he was the funniest guy at work. The city of Los Angeles was officially founded in 1842 as a place for improv students to go hiking. One of the stereotypes of LA is that it's all these, magical movies being made everywhere. Well, that's not Los Angeles. That is Vancouver up here. Every movie's made in Vancouver or Atlanta. If you saw someone making a movie in the city of Los Angeles, it would probably be in Studio City, which is not a city, it is a neighborhood. In the same way that Koreatown is not a town. It's a neighborhood. In the same way that Silver Lake is not a lake, it's a reservoir. In the same way that Los Feliz translates to the happy ones, but it is in fact filled with very unhappy people.
Variety's Clayton Davis and I recently spoke with John Mulaney, and we got very specific in discussing everything he learned about Los Angeles while researching Everybody's in L.A. We got into where the idea came from, whether he'll do another one in another city, and also we tried to grill him on everything from if he'll host the Oscars to if he's in season 3 of The Bear, to mixed results. But we began by talking about walking in L.A.
My good friend Noah Garfinkel is one of the great Echo Park Silver Lake walkers. And seeing him has become kind of a thing. A lot of people have seen him on his walk. Do you take a more of a hike, or are you taking a city walk?
I do a city walk. So I do an annual event called the Great LA Walk, where I get about 400, 500 people, and we walk the length of a street in Los Angeles. So we'll do downtown to the ocean. We'll do Wilshire. We'll do Santa Monica. We do different streets every year. Wilshire's the best one to do because you see a microcosm of Los Angeles throughout. Pico perhaps is the best one. That's famously the one that Jonathan Gold actually ate his way down.
Yes,
one of his books.
A great inspiration for our show, Jonathan Gold. Western, would Western be fun?
Western's a long one, but
Western cuts right through it, which is why it's interesting to me.
And actually last year we did do, I think on my shirt, I did. Last year we did Fairfax and Western. I did a square last year where we started in Griffith Park and we actually went down Franklin all the way to Fairfax. Then we went down Fairfax.
Wait, you went down Griffith Park? So you went down...
Yeah, a little bit. And then we did...
So you went down that stretch of Western that goes downhill?
That little turn that goes right by AFI.
Sure,
then we went down Franklin and then we went all the way to Fairfax.
Is that turn Los Feliz Boulevard or Western?
So that would be Los Feliz Boulevard.
Yeah.
No, and then it kind of curves into Western. Then it turns into Western right at that curve.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm watching the Californians right now. So now I don't enjoy this at all. This is very, it's very graphic. It's very
very.
Look, we didn't even get into taking Wilton when Western is backed up. So just please relax.
Wilton is
we're speaking pretty generally and accessibly.
Wilton. I mean, everyone talks about Fountain, take Fountain, but honestly, Betty Davis should have really said take Wilton.
Oh my God, Wilton's a dream.
All right, so Mulaney, why don't we back up? What I mean,
and hey, listen, because you said if something happens that I want to edit out, feel free to take all that out.
No, this is the gold. This is
okay, cool.
John Mulaney's Wilton hack. I think is not enough people know about. That's probably our headline.
Not enough people know
this entire podcast, but. So back us up real quick. The whole origins of doing a very hyper local talk show and really geeking out on all of these things. Where did this all come from?
Okay. First off, thanks for having me and thanks for watching the show. I do so well with an assignment. Some of my favorite things to do have been, still to this day, to write jokes for someone doing an award show or write jokes for a friend who has to give a commencement address. I love assignments. I find them very organizing in my brain. Netflix post-strike, I'm thinking just before the holidays, came to me and said, we have the Netflix is a Joke Festival at which you are performing at the Hollywood Bowl. Yes, I know that. We want to do 6 live nights of a show. It would go live at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. They'd live on the service after. That was it. That's all they brought me. It was the coolest feeling because it was like a time and place pitch. Like, would you like to fill an hour from 7 to 8 Pacific? Those 2 nights off for Cat Williams special and the Tom Brady roast. And we'll give you 6 live nights. The only thing they pitched was, what if it's stand-up from the Geffen Theater, which I think seats hundreds of people, and you wouldn't want to try to fill every night for a stand-up showcase. And it sounded not fun to me, but also they weren't married to that. They just threw it out. And then I thought, like, I don't know if that is, will it feel like some sort of show just to promote the festival? I don't really want to do that. But I thought about it, and I thought, what's cool about the Netflix festival is obviously you can see they're like, trying to get every single comedian and shove it down Wilton. And so I was like, what's cool about that festival is we're all in town in the same place for a week, and we just never are. Like, the chance to see Earthquake and Nate and Segura, like, we just don't run into each other anymore. Like, I don't see Ali Wong a lot. We're all out and doing our thing. So I like that everyone's in the same city for 1 week. That's kind of special. And I like that the city is L.A., which is a place that really confuses and intrigues me. And I said, I'll do it if I can cover L.A. like local television. I'll have all the comics on. We'll weave them in. But I'd like to have it feel like KTLA, which is, those of you that know, amazing local station in Los Angeles. And they were good with that. And they said, I mean, I think they had 2 notes for the whole process, and I took one of them. And I would have taken more. I mean, again, I was handed such a blank slate that I was open to anyone's input, from our production designer to Brooke Linder, who shot all the bumpers and interviews with people around LA. I really wanted it to be a true eclectic show where it's not just my voice. It's not like every sketch is me doing it and I wrote it and it's exactly how I write sketches. And, I wanted to do Oh Hello. I wanted to be in a couple things, but I wanted a lot of people's input because it's a very crowded, eclectic city. And I wanted the show to feel that way as well.
What did you ignore?
The note?
Yeah.
Oh, could we have a pre-live show where you see the studio, basically that we're trying to get people to sit down in their seats at home So could you have a show where it's 7, but we're still acting like there's a minute to go to sort of create urgency? And I said, I'll do a camera above the studio, like the beginning of Dogville, the Lars von Trier movie, where you just see the taped out studio and what's about to happen. And they said, that's okay. That's okay. We don't have to do that.
So,
and I was excited. I sent them the link to Dogville quite sincerely.
Yeah. You always reminded me of a young Lars von Trier, but
I really suffocate my actors.
Our TV critic Allison Herman had a great question. It said the show felt very influenced by Dick Cavett and other vintage hosts. Did you watch any episodes to prepare?
I've watched endless episodes of Dick Cavett. I had the DVDs in college. He had these great ones with like just Hollywood people. John Huston is an amazing one. His Robert Mitchum interview is ridiculous. Robert Mitchum's wearing basically sunglasses. They're so tinted, they're blue. But I filed that away because I thought more people should wear sunglasses on talk shows. I also saw an interview with Wong Kar-wai where he was wearing sunglasses, and I thought, that's a cool way to look on television. So I had watched a lot of that. I stole the clipboard from Mr. Cavett. I'm a huge fan. He had been on the Oh Hello Off-Broadway show, so it was very fun to meet him and talk to him. And I loved the sort of easy chair, cross-legged pace of that show. Totally. 100% an influence.
And Mark Malkin's follow-up to that was, what's your favorite interview? And he's hoping you're going to say Betty Davis, but you haven't mentioned her yet. So I'm giving you an opportunity to say that.
You mean Dick Cavett, Betty Davis?
Yeah.
I mean, the Katharine Hepburn one is so funny because she keeps talking about how she just drinks cold water and loves exercise. It's the weirdest regimen I've ever heard of a human being. And I'd say Dick Cavett, John Huston, but there's some great like Gore Vidal ones. I like those because it's just a guy. It's like they just have a guy on television. He might have had a new play or book or something, but it was basically like our guest tonight is Gore Vidal because he likes to talk about stuff.
have you ever watched the clips of the unaired Orson Welles talk show pilot?
No.
Did you know about this?
Never. I do not know about this. Is this in his wine ad era?
This is in his wine ad era. This was
one of the best eras.
He shot it around 78, 79, and his guests included Jim Henson and Frank Oz. So if you actually watch the new Jim Henson documentary that Ron Howard put out, they have a ton of clips from it, and it's the most surreal thing. It's Orson Welles, very much
Orson Welles talk show.
Yeah, the 78, 79 Orson Welles, and he's sitting there and he's giggling, asking Jim Henson and Frank Oz all about the Muppets. And apparently he shot this pilot. He shot a couple of episodes or a couple of interviews. It never went anywhere because, it's still Orson Welles hosting a talk show in 1979. But
he shot a talk show on spec?
Yeah. Coincidentally at the KTLA studios. So bringing back KTLA into it.
Bringing back KTLA.
But how disappointed are all of us that this did not go to series?
Hugely disappointed.
No, I wasn't alive for this. I'm very upset about this.
But
I can't believe that happened. It's so interesting looking back that people were like, "Oh, that has been like," he's so funny and interesting in that phase, and still making like really interesting movies and Chimes at Midnight and stuff. It's so weird. Like seeing his wine ads, seeing that guy in his wine ads. I go like, I'd work with him every day. I'd hire him for everything.
Yeah.
Coming off this, you're in a renaissance at the moment. We call it the Mulaney-sance. I don't know what we're going to call it. But coming off your third Emmy win,
I'm not saying I am, but I would pitch Millennium.
Mulaney, ooh, like back.
But I'm not. Listen, I'm not saying that. I'm not giving myself the compliment. I just wanted to put it out there as a possibility.
It is much better than what I said.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and it does. And it does sound like
good.
It does sound like you've used Millennium a lot. This is
Sure.
something
I was
you
pretty
have really.
I was pretty quick with it, wasn't I?
Yeah, that
I didn't
has been
even make a
tested.
face like, I wonder.
No,
That's
you're like,
been
oh, I'm ready
focus
for this.
grouped.
Yeah.
But coming off your Emmy win for Baby J, which was a great stand-up special, sir. Very well done.
Thanks, Clay.
And then your harrowing performance on The Bear, and then now we're in Everybody in L.A. And then, by the way, I was at the Governor's Awards, the Academy's Governor's Awards, where you killed and lied about auditioning for Maggie Gyllenhaal's movie, which I wish was a real thing, that you would be in that movie.
Well, I did get an email for it. I was offered that role.
Oh, so that part is true that you were offered, but did you end up sending?
Oh my God, I didn't.
Okay. That's the part I was disappointed by. But I do like that you got that.
I apologize. It was the best way to end that story. But no, I was offered to put myself on tape for Young Cop in the untitled Maggie Gyllenhaal project. I was almost going to share the first line of the sides, which was, "Hi, ma'am, do you know how fast you were going?"
You have to go to the premiere now and be there and see who got this part. So
I'll yell it out at the same time, Rocky Horror Show style.
Exactly. But what
the Governor's Awards was a ton of fun. God.
Oh, it was incredible. And then, by the way, got to the Oscars where you presented. And my favorite Mulaney bits tend to be when you're going through your love of film and cinema. Your fugitive bit is my favorite.
Thank you, man.
In history.
Thanks, man.
What can you talk about that relationship that you have with movies, but really have brought this into stand-up and your comedy that makes it accessible for nerds like me? And Mike, you're a nerd too. I'm going to put you in there as well.
I'm a nerd. Yeah,
we're both nerds.
Give me a nerd.
Yeah.
I think there's this kind of canon of films, like they're not the AFI 100, they're not the Criterion Collection, though the Criterion app is adding a lot more stuff than it used to. But they're just canon to a certain age of maybe Guy, but I think anyone. The Fugitive is one of those. I'd say Dave with Kevin Kline is. Field of Dreams is one of those. I think the movie of those, the quintessential movie of that is Shawshank Redemption, which everyone has seen more times than Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump combined in history. I really love finding those things that, so this is such stand-up corny talk, but that oh my God, I'm actually about to say the sentence that we've all noticed, but no one said, about those movies that are just constantly on television and deep in our subconscious, but not discussed as the great movies of our time.
Thank you for that, Mike.
So I enjoy that a lot.
No, that makes sense, and you're right in that we have TNT to thank for the world knowing Shawshank Redemption and having seen 20 times over.
What do we do with Air Force One? We've all where's the list for that?
Get off my plane.
Get off my plane, because he's the president, man, and he's right. You can't take that plane over. That's his.
I always want you to do a bit on. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it. You ever seen Ransom, the 1996 Mel Gibson?
100%.
That is quintessentially made for Mulaney to just go through, and that whole scene.
This is now a ransom on your head. I'd say Thomas Crown Affair is like that.
Yeah.
There were lots of movies that looked great, had such high production value, and were so interesting. And they didn't win. They just came out. They were great. They didn't win Oscars. I don't think they were nominated for Oscars. They were just like the B team of great movies.
Yeah. By the way, Fugitive was nominated for Best Picture, and famously, Tommy Lee Jones won the Oscar for that movie.
I completely apologize.
Fines. Beat Rape by
was Shawshank.
Yeah, and Shawshank.
As was Shawshank.
Yeah. So,
apologies.
Yeah.
But Air Force One and Dave were not.
We're not. Yeah, not for Best Picture. Can you talk about The Bear, though? What was it like working on The Bear and working with really having to scrape in the barrel and work with Jamie Lee Curtis, Sarah Paulson, Io, Bob Odenkirk. Really, really tough stuff that you had to endure.
Unfortunately, Io was on set, but wasn't in the episode that I did in season 2. But I mean, she was around all week because she was around, and it was so fun. That show already. Everyone at the Bear was already aware of the success the show was having. That was a season 2 episode I did. I've never seen a group of people deal better with success. More the humility and the welcoming and the groundedness from Chris Storer, and I think that's a huge part of it, on down. Jeremy, everybody. They were such a great group of people to be around. Like sitting at that dinner table in between takes was some of the most fun I've ever had in my career. When we were going, I like what I do. I'm a fan of what I do. But sitting down the table from Odenkirk at full throttle and Bernthal, like being in the same room with Bernthal and Odenkirk about to go at it, was intense. And being yelled at in character as Donna by Jamie Lee Curtis is like an Amtrak train going. One that's not stopping at your stop. Just blew me away. So I was just sitting at the edge of the table. I remember Odenkirk goes, "You throw another fork at me and you're going to get fucking rocked." And he like, it was not the line, is like, get rocked is such a funny term. The line was not, there was nothing funny about it. I was sitting at the edge of the table going, holy shit. Oh my God, this might be real. Oh man, I really don't throw another fork. Don't throw another fork, Michael. It was great. It was like an amazing 6-day summer camp with all those folks. Oliver Platt. Oh my God, the most fun. Abby, who I'd worked with at Saturday Night Live. Then at the end of the table, working with Sarah Paulson, who I'd never had the pleasure of even meeting before that. Everybody. It was so fantastic, let alone Jeremy and Eben and everybody.
Are you in season 3? You want to just share that part of it? If there's another flashback?
Oh, I know they're filming a lot of stuff.
But you haven't filmed?
I know that they're doing I know they're shooting a lot of episodes. Chris is great.
Yeah.
This is, he takes a sip of water.
I don't know. Guys, come on. I don't know. I don't know if I'm still allowed to say I was in Spider-Verse. that had a weird code name for 2 years. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to tell you that.
It's a secretive industry, but
it's so secretive. We keep everything close to the vest. No one announces anything. No one announces when they change agency. No, it's a very quiet, secretive industry.
But you were looking around that table, that murderer's row, and you said, who here has had a sitcom named after them on a major broadcast network? And
that's exactly what I was thinking. Whenever I go into a new project, I'm always using my sitcom as the thing to give me confidence. Whenever I'm nervous, I go, you're the guy that delivered but didn't see air over 14 half-hour episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do those episodes end up when they never see them?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have never watched it again.
Never?
So I think it must be on a streamer. No, I saw them when they came out, and I haven't watched them again.
Well, I will tell you, Clayton is still a little. He does have a bone to pick. This Yonder pouch that we had to use at your comedy special at the Hollywood Bowl. We actually had to talk to each other, which was odd, but kind of refreshing. Like we weren't looking at our phones. We actually were humans for a couple hours.
You came to the Hollywood Bowl?
Yeah,
yes,
we were both there.
I did not know that. Thank you for coming.
My first time at the bowl. Never been there before.
Fun to park there, yeah?
We didn't park there. We parked many miles away and then walked. We walked. See, it goes with Mike's theme.
Hollywood and Highlands.
Let's go to a show. All you have to do is park at the Magic Castle and walk uphill for 3 hours.
You get your
and then your phone's taken from you.
Yep.
Yes, but then we all eyes on John Mulaney. It was fun. I mean, is that you've done that? I actually saw you at the last Netflix is a Joke event in 2019 as well. So you're used to doing those kind of venues, but that's still got to be odd to be used to being in an enclosed space and instead you're outdoors, you're speaking to people that you can't see. Is there a different vibe to doing a show at the Bowl? Do you have to prepare differently? What is that like to do something like that?
It was, in terms of preparation, I was working on the L.A. show at the same time. So I had an episode on the 3rd, our premiere, Seinfeld and Tony Tucci of Claw, Citizens for LA Wildlife. We do that show. I go to bed. I wake up the 4th. There's a brunch at Ted Sarandos's for every comedian. Not mandatory.
By the way,
not mandatory, but maybe mandatory.
Let's pause real quick at what a flex that is. The fact that he has every comedian at his house. You guys took that class photo in his pool
in the morning.
It's a breakfast.
Okay, it was brunch. I mean, it wasn't nighttime.
And my favorite thing,
he got every vampire awake in the day.
And it's a great photo. It's quite the flex. It's like every major comedian in the world and then Ted. So yeah, you had a busy week in Los Angeles.
So you were asking me about the Bowl. That venue in particular for an outdoor venue is just singular in terms of the sound. A lot of times with an outdoor amphitheater, when you've got 17,000 people there, it goes out and the laughs come back in sort of like a wave of the ocean. Like there's a delay. The Bowl, obviously, and the Greek kind of go into a mountain, and like Red Rocks, it's just immediate. So it has the feel of an indoor theater, but you're in front of 17,000 people. You can see the lights around each section. And by the time I was on, though, it was dark outside. So yeah, you're not seeing so many folks, but you can hear them fast.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if like there's a weird echo or if it like messes with your timing at all. But...
Nope. I think that's why the place has lasted. It really, I think it sounds good for the audience, and it definitely sounds good for the people on stage.
So you're doing that at the same time as the talk show. What kind of prep went into the talk show? How long were you guys working on this, and what did you do to kind of prepare yourself for this?
I don't want to get my dates wrong, but I think we moved into our production office at the end of January. When were the Governor's Awards? I can't.
They moved to January this year. It was at the beginning of January.
Yeah. Because I remember thinking during the Governor's Awards, hey, this is going really great, but I still got to figure out that show. And then it was like the next day we moved in or something. So I'd call it February 1. I think our writers started around then. We moved very fast. When Brian Grazer came on our show to tell stories to children, he had an anecdote about getting the rights to The Nutty Professor, and one of his mantras was, act quickly, overpay, get it done. Act quickly, overpay, get it done. He has lots of mantras.
Yes, he does.
And while I learned that at the end of the production, because we filmed him in April, I'd say I somehow had that mantra in my heart from the beginning of the show. I was sitting with our head writer and EP, Dave Ferguson, and we'd been in the office for a few hours, and I was talking about this movie, Blue in the Face, Wayne Wang movie. Mm-hmm. Smoke and Blue in the Face are these Brooklyn movies that, Wayne Wang's made really interesting stuff, and these two are so exemplary. And there's these interviews with real people in Brooklyn saying facts about Brooklyn throughout Blue in the Face. And it always struck me since I was young and I first saw it as just a great way. It works. It totally works with the narrative about Harvey Keitel and his life in the movie. So I was talking to Dave about wanting to interview real people in Los Angeles, not like funny men on the street, just get just get people to talk about their life, where they live, anything, and get it kind of presentational and flat in a way, like blue in the face. And he said, "Do you know this guy Brooke Linder, who he'd worked with on a Zach Galifianakis project?" And I said, "No." And I looked at a couple music videos of Brooks, and I said, "Let's hire him now. Let's hire him now and have him just go out and start shooting Los Angeles." And so I was really lucky. Dude, Netflix was great. I know this sounds like corporate speak, but like Netflix was incredible. Like I gave them the wish list of writers I had. They got the money together for them. They let me hire someone like Brooke and just have him go out and film and film and film. They let me, John Foy and I were super diligent on the budget, but we in terms of getting the people we wanted together fast, they were excellent. And we moved fast, and we didn't overpay, but we paid and we got it done. And it was so fun to work like that. It was so fun to just make decisions and say, I don't know what the show is, so how could this be a wrong decision? You can't tell me this doesn't work for our show.
Yeah.
You had so many people come on the show and say, "What is this? What are we doing
now,
here?"
That's interesting. I didn't find it that weird. It became an interesting, locally focused talk show for the entire globe. I did pick topics that I thought would be interesting to a lot of people. And I thought our experts were pretty fun. So when people go, "I have no idea what's going on," part of it was by design, and I didn't know what was going on a lot. I tried to keep myself in the dark about a lot of details. Like I never knew what they were going to write in the lower thirds below people. Langston Kerman, a great comedian and writer on our show, was handling all of those just live without telling me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when Samo would come out, our robot, and things like that. So I tried to keep myself in the dark, but there were some things that I thought were pretty straightforward. I was like, it's kind of a panel talk show.
Right. Well, I think also comedians love to sort of add some chaos to it, and maybe they know what's going on, but it's fun to say I have no idea.
I will say backstage they also didn't. Seinfeld said to me, "What is this? We're going to talk about coyotes?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "You want to talk about entertainment?" He was like, "No." And I go, "It's going to be great." And he loved it.
Yeah. I'd rather hear Seinfeld talk about coyotes than entertainment.
100%.
Where's Samo right now?
Samo right now is out on the streets of L.A. So he's the only one named Samo. The company's called Serve Robotics. I named him Samo. And they allowed us to have one of their robots. And I was like, "You guys are a new company trying to get your robots with eyes delivery carts off the ground. Like, are you sure you want us to have it on the show, make it a character, and sometimes have it annoy people?" And they were like, "We're fine with it." So they provided us a real one.
And then put him back in the street. The fame didn't go to his head or anything?
It didn't go to his head because he's grounded.
Oh.
Do you understand what I mean? Like he has a strong family. And so the success didn't go to his head. So if you see a robot delivering food in West Hollywood, one with big bright eyes, and it says Samo on it, that is the actual one from the show.
Arguably the biggest star to come out of
100%.
Everybody's in L.A.
That was the thing I was asked most by people that don't live in LA is, "What is that thing and why did you make that up?" And I said, that's an absolutely real thing happening in Los Angeles.
Right.
I have a very important question I want to make sure I get in.
100%.
Going back to the Oscars for a second, because you killed at the Governor's Awards and you were great on the Oscar ceremony right before Ryan Gosling took the stage. I'm Just Ken, which I don't know how he didn't ask you to be in it. Like, you would have made a great addition to it. You should talk to him about that.
I will.
But there is a very active call in a way that I haven't seen since Hugh Jackman hosted the Tonys for you to host the Oscars. So my question to you is, why shouldn't you do it? And why will you do it?
I like the question, why will you do it? That reminds me of the dude that does Tony Clifton, Bob Zamuda,
Yeah.
Andy Kaufman's comedy partner. Okay,
Yeah.
he still does these Q&As as Tony Clifton. Like, I don't know, they're like shows, and then he takes questions. And Tony Clifton is a real contrarian grouch. And someone in the audience raised their hand and said, Tony, have you ever been to Europe, and why not? So I really like why will you host? What was the question is, why shouldn't I?
What? Yeah. Why will you do it, or are you, or in reality?
I love watching Jimmy Kimmel do it. I love watching Jimmy Kimmel do it. I had so much fun presenting. It was so fun. Great.
But if Kimmel doesn't want to do it, because you're right, Kimmel should be like he is the first choice forever. But if Kimmel says, you know what,
100%. God, he's so good. I've never seen anyone that good at producing such a show on that level. And the way he comes across is so calm and casual. Like it's really insane to be standing on that stage with so many people watching and still just be yourself.
Yeah, and let me lay it out there. If he were to host again, he then ties Johnny Carson as a third.
Oh, awesome!
Most hosted Oscar host. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, he would tie Johnny Carson. So it is a big deal.
Okay, real quick, Clayton, because we're asking dumb questions, which is allowing John to evade the answer.
I know.
So just straight up, if someone asked you, if the Academy asked you to host the Oscars, would you do it?
Oh, I bet. I mean, I take, I like doing things. I bet.
I like that. I bet.
Okay.
I mean, like, it's like, I'd be like, when is it? Do
I have anything that night? Do I have anything
that night? Okay, how many months ahead of time am I scared? Okay, I can do that.
So you're right now, you're free early March, late February-ish time?
Is that when it is?
Yeah, usually.
This March I have I'm going to a book signing at the Barnes and Noble at the Grove.
Right.
One night late March, so I definitely couldn't do it that night. It's a Sunday night.
And you've got a dinner. You've got a thing.
Yeah, and then we're getting dinner after.
Yeah, you've got a thing. So
yeah.
All right, I do appreciate it. Can you tell me just as much as you told us about the bear? Can you tell me about the next Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse? I assume you could tell me everything.
Yeah, I can't. Nothing.
No, I heard you could tell me everything. They just emailed me and they said,
"Oh, they did?"
About Spider-Ham. Yeah, it says Spider-Ham. It's on your IMDb, so we know you're in it. But
so in this movie, for some reason, instead of being favored nations, here's the big twist: the studio's going to pay me the most. So I'm sorry to put that out in the press, because now they'll have to, they'll obviously have to do it, but of course they were going to anyway. So I can give you zero information about it.
Fine.
So
but why do you want it?
Exactly. We want to be surprised.
Yeah.
We want to be surprised.
Journalists hate knowing about things ahead of time.
That is true.
Hate it.
They hate knowing stuff.
So, John, something else that people have now talked about a lot is with the success of Everybody's in L.A. Is there an idea? And I know they've talked about one idea is maybe to travel the Netflix as a joke festival, and if so, is there an opportunity?
When did they say that?
It's I don't honestly. I talked to a guy, so.
They travel the festival. Interesting.
But if they did that, do you see an opportunity to maybe do this franchise in other cities? Everybody's in Chicago. Would
everyone be there?
So if they,
because I don't want to lie, would everyone be there?
Yeah, if they were to travel the festival, would you be?
Because I wouldn't just go to a city where there's not everybody and go, everybody's here, don't worry.
Yeah, so everybody needs to be there, basically.
It would help. It was great that they were there. It was great everyone was a car ride away. A car ride and a 15-minute explanation backstage.
Right. You were
I hadn't heard about them traveling the festival. Someone asked me that. They go, would you do Everybody's in Chicago? And I was like, Yeah, if everyone's there. Listen, last December, I didn't know that I would create and host a show called Everybody's in L.A. So I'm quite open to anything. Like you guys are asking me now to host the Oscars and stuff. I'm happen to be busy. But I hope I'm giving off, I like taking work.
Yeah.
I do sense that you're always sort of looking at the new thing. We've been desperate to have more Sack Lunch Bunch, for example, but that felt like, I guess that was a moment in time for you. But it was well received, and I think people would love to see another one of those. But you've kind of moved on to something else.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't get this feedback a lot. To do another. That'd be great. That'd be really fun. I like the variety that I've had the past decade, kind of trying something in an arena, doing it as well as I can, or as doing it as genuinely as I can, and seeing how that goes. But I'm not trying to just jump around and never do something again,
Another thing, by the way, so I recently talked to Wang Chung.
Yeah.
Because I've had that song in my head for weeks now.
That was a great piece. Thank you for talking to them. I have to say, just as a fan of them and the show, and I was so interested reading what they said about Friedkin. Friedkin was a big deal to me on this show.
Yeah. And I had no idea, by the way, that the Wang Chung guys had stayed in close contact with Friedkin. Like they would meet up, they would stay at each other's places. Like they remain like buddies up until the end of his life, which was fascinating. But again, that song,
and what an intellectual he was. He directed operas. He's a really interesting guy. And I had been reading the Friedkin Chronicles in January of this year. Leading up to the Governor's Awards. I can't remember. Because in my Governor's Awards speech, I quoted this interview with Al Pacino about what it's like to be at the Oscars. And I was telling Dave Ferguson, who then became the head writer on Everybody's in L.A., I said, my other favorite Hollywood story is how William Friedkin accidentally cast most of The French Connection. And there's a great interview you can find it on YouTube, where he didn't want to cast Gene Hackman, and they were like, this is the only way you'll get the movie made. And he went, fine, I'll make it work. And then he wanted this actor that was in Belle de Jour, and he said, get the guy from Belle de Jour. So then he goes to the airport to pick him up, and it's Fernando Rey, and it's not the guy that he wanted. And Fernando Rey says, I don't speak French, by the way. And he's supposed to be the French Connection. And so then Friedkin goes, so then I called D'Antoni and Wiener, who were at the production office on 54th Street. In all of Friedkin's stories, he gives way too much detail about the street and location that everyone's at. And he called them and he went, and I said, you fucking morons, you assholes, you got the wrong guy. But then he keeps him, because he just has to. I knew going into Everybody's in L.A. that there would be so many decisions made out of having no option and necessity. We just had these dates. We were live. It was only, you could only come on May 3rd, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. It was just it was a very creative process, and it was also really a process of limits. And so I liked reading Friedkin's book before we got started, because he always was working within confines and so pissed off about it. And it was just a funny thing to read every night. So then To Live and Die in LA, sorry for the long-winded thing.
No,
To Live and Die in LA, his film, the style of it was also a big deal to me in how my show looked visually. Yeah. And that was what Brooklynder transcended, kind of, because it was such an update on that type of feel. The Wang Chung song, man, that was like a day one thing. We got to get that, and I was so happy we were able to clear it and work with them. And and use it.
I just have two last things I wanted to ask you. One,
well, Clayton, real quick before we just to finish that thought, because Wang Chung, they definitely do want you to come see them in concert at the Greek in August. So I'm going to relay that invite from them to you. So just in case you're free in August, they're at the Greek and they're like, yeah, we would definitely want John there. So FYI, you have free tickets to a Wang Chung concert in your future.
But if you
I gotta say, Wang Chung, the whole soundtrack to the movie is excellent. If I have 2 extra tickets, you guys are there, and I don't know Wang Chung's yonder policy, but guys, we may be able to keep our phones out.
I think so.
My last 2 bits. One is
wait, I have 20 more minutes on Friedkin.
Oh, do you? Oh, I mean, listen, that could be your next big show. No, I wanted to ask you about your movie career, what you want to do in the future, because I, maybe just an assumption, feel like I always feel like comedians always have a good drama that's embedded somewhere in them that they want to tackle a big serious project. And I want to know if there's anything that you're looking to do, or is anything that's in your sphere that you're about to tackle that you want to share with us that you might be considering?
Just, there's a lot of folks involved, so I won't disclose too much, but there's a couple things coming up I'm really excited about. And it's interesting to say about dramas. I mean, being on The Bear was obviously, like, we improvised this scene, me and Maddie, with Neil and with the facts. And they just threw that in that episode where they're trying to get me into a baseball card selling business. So there were really fun scenes like that, but I loved the intensity of that dining table. And there was stuff they didn't use that, it was just sort of lateral moves. But like when Jamie Lee at one point yelled at Michelle, Sarah Paulson's character, and it was so visceral, and I felt so protective of her in that moment. I went, hey, hey, hey. I went, hey, 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 hey. And Jamie Lee Curtis goes, don't, hey, 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 me. Donna, excuse me, says that. And I was like, it was genuinely such intense fun. So, I have a real love of things that are slightly dark, not darker, different shades of tone. What a boring answer. Yeah. As I was finishing it,
you're always going to skate around it. It's fine. Hopefully, it's not.
No, it's not about skating around it. I'd love to do it. I'd love to be in. I love acting in cool projects.
Would you act with Dean Cain?
Would I act with Dean Cain?
It's one of your great bits, man. So is that Dean Cain?
Is that Dean Cain?
Yeah.
I would. What was his Superman show called? Superman?
Superman and Lois, wasn't it?
Clark and Lois.
Clark and Lois.
That was called Clark and Lois with Terry Hatcher?
Yep.
Yeah. I would not only executive produce, but put my own personal money into a reboot of that.
On it.
Look, I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about finances, but I think that'd be a good spot.
And then my final bit that I wanted to ask you was, I just wanted to ask you, how's Malcolm, and more importantly, how's Olivia? Because I feel like I should have.
I appreciate you asking that. Olivia is unstoppable and lovely, and she's doing very well. And I know that the effect that her advocating this lifetime risk assessment test had with a lot of people everywhere was extremely gratifying to her. And health-wise, she's doing well. And that was the day that it's just been a whirlwind since last spring. So everything's great because she's okay.
Yeah.
Malcolm's good. Malcolm's amazing. Malcolm, just before he went to sleep an hour ago, asked me if I wanted to buy a tomato. These are the
And
Did we
your
go buy a
answer,
tomato? He said.
your answer was
100%.
Yeah.
I think he saw a tomato in Paddington. I'm not sure where it came from, but he looked at me so sincerely and said, "Should we go buy a tomato?"
How much do you think he's willing to pay for a tomato?
From the look in his eye, a lot. My family's doing well, and that's all I want. So I know you guys are trying to make me host award shows, but I'm not available. I have a book signing.
More award shows, more everybody's in ...
Everybody's in Biloxi.
Yep. We put a lot on you this time out. We are demanding a lot of John Mulaney. So.
And I evaded every question, and the only real project I talked about was the French Connection.
Tom Holland will watch this, and then he will take notes about how to do this in the future, because he famously always gives up stuff during interviews. So
he gives up stuff?
He used to. He's gotten better.
Oh, interesting. It's tempting. Hey, listen, it's really tempting. I'm looking at you guys' faces. I want to make you happy.
I'm so excited to be sitting here with you. But is there anything else? Well, Mike, I'm sure you have a final question that you want to end with and give them a good send off.
What time should we meet for the Wang Chung concert? Do you want to get dinner beforehand? I know some great places in Los Feliz. We'll set it up.
Mike, I will not eat in certain places in Los Feliz after talking to a seismologist on our earthquake episode. There are liquefaction zones along certain big avenues of Los Feliz that will turn into quicksand during a large earthquake. The sands and silts under the ground will slam together in such a way that it'll create a watery quicksand. And I'm not going to drown in sand in front of the Hillhurst Albertsons. You understand me? So we can eat somewhere else.
You learned a lot on this. By the way, in the final episode, what's the backstory on Mayor Bass calling in? And you really didn't know that was happening?
No, I had an earpiece every night, and our wonderful producer, Ashley Edens, would be talking to me and letting me know, like, you should take call 1. And then I had an iPad that would pop up. And we got a call from, I'm pretty sure, Jimmy Kimmel. They were like, you should take this guy in Malibu. And it turned out to be James Austin Johnson doing Bob Dylan, which took me a while. I just thought he was a weird guy who had horses in Malibu. And I really enjoyed the guy. And I was like, and then I looked at it and I was like, Bob D. And I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And then they say Mayor Bass is calling. I was pretty sure it wasn't a prank. I remember on air being like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And we had a great producer named James Kim producing the call segment. And I trusted him so much. I was like, leave me out of it. You know how much I like actually getting into the subject, and you know how much I like eccentric, bizarre people. So you strike the balance. And he did beautifully. So I found out that night she was calling in.
Oh, and awesome. Do you think she had any idea what she was calling into?
Not a bit. How could you? It was our 6th episode. I did want to, I was curious to talk to her. I had no agenda, I didn't want to be critical. As I said in our first episode, like, I don't know how anyone could be mayor of Los Angeles. It's just so many things at once. I don't know how you could go to bed and be like, I got this.
Right.
Things are under control.
And the thing is, I was just going to say, L.A. goes through fits and starts. So I don't know, like, you talked about books that you might have read before doing this. Were there any books about L.A.? Did you read like any Mike Davis or?
Mike Davis, yeah. Mike Davis, Ecology of Fear and City of Quartz were actually that was what you got in your gift bag. As well, if you came on the show as a guest, you got a T-shirt and a mug.
I was like, I didn't get a gift bag,
and a couple of Mike Davis books, because I've always
and a couple of Mike Davis books, and also, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on everything. Let me actually look this up because it's important.
The Bible.
it's funny when you read like City of Quartz, especially, which I think he's a little too. I mean, I get what he's doing. He's a little too pessimistic about Los Angeles, but then again,
and it's also written pre Rodney King.
Yeah. So
which is so interesting. What he's talking about Operation Hammer and what's happening in those areas. It's all pre that.
Yeah. And then it all kind of comes true to some degree in the early 90s. And then we had a real period of growth, especially in the 2000s into the 2010s. And obviously with the pandemic and other issues, we've kind of fallen back again. But, just like Fleece said in your final episode, I do love this filthy, filthy town, Los Angeles.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about L.A., I just checked which books I get. Go to your local library and get City of Quartz, though, grain of salt, says Mike, that it's a little too pessimistic. The Mirage Factory, Illusion, Imagination, and the Invention of Los Angeles by Gary Christ. That's a great book. Mulholland and How the City Came Together. Everything Now by Rosencrantz Baldwin, also a phenomenal book of essays about Los Angeles, and many, many more.
And Dogville.
Those are at your local library. And Lars von Trier's Dogville. If you want to know what I thought should be the opening shot of a talk show.
We will attach a bibliography to this podcast.
I do need to say, because you just...
Yeah, I'll give a syllabus to all viewers.
The more you know.
You mentioned James Austin Johnson, and just I have to ask you, going into SNL's 50th year, will you host next season? And do you think it's Lauren's final?
If they ask me, I'm there. So I don't think.
Okay, got it.
Oh, I'd love to host. Yeah, they didn't got the schedule yet. June.
Yeah, ask you early. And then what about? Do you think it's Lauren's last year doing it?
Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to know what that man's thinking, and I certainly don't. Still to this day, I don't think he said it was.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't said.
Yeah.
But Mike, you were gonna add something to that?
Everyone's like, oh, the 50, and that's not always when people don't always make big decisions just because it's a famous number.
Yeah.
Like,
this is true.
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
This is true.
It wasn't like at the 10th he was like, okay, yeah.
Well, I love that
he wasn't there at the 10th. Excuse me.
We've given John a lot of jobs. We've given our listeners a lot of reading.
You've given me jobs. You've given me jobs that you have no control over, which is the best way to give a job.
We're the headhunters for Hollywood. They call us up and we fill in the gaps.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's why you have all that swag, Michaels, because you're the power broker and people send you these things.
This is true. Well, John, it was a pleasure.
What else do you guys got today?
All right, I think we're just going to have to leave it there. That's comedian John Mulaney. You can go back and watch all of Everybody's in L.A., and I recommend you do right now on Netflix. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit Podcast. Aaron Greenewald edited this episode, and Michael Schneider is the producer. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.